Okay, so last time we arrived at Grandma's house, and we are going to find out what happens at Grandma's house. So, yeah, Grandma's house. Woo. My grandmother greets me cheerfully when I arrive at her home. She rattles all of her unpleasantries, and I take off my shoes in the entrance. Oh, how much she missed me. Wait, did I? Oh, I've definitely done this. Okay, I'll meet us back to where we haven't seen stuff. My grandmother pads out of the living room, her footsteps cushioned by her cream slippers. I began to glance around in my grandmother's absence, letting the heat of the cat soothe my weary feet and aching legs. Yes, that was the game making that noise. My grandmother's home is quintessentially Japanese. The walls are supported with wood and the floors from the tatsumi mats, and the doors are sliding screens. This kind of architecture feels almost drastic from my time in Tokyo. The apartment in Tokyo has distinctly Western feeling. There are no tatami floors, and there's not that much wood either. This old house is as far as always from my apartment as it possibly could get. It looks the same as always. The same pictures hang on the walls. The only object in this room eschews Japanese sensibility is a French doll. A doll that has blonde hair tied in a neat ringlet, blue-eyed, fringed with long lashes. I think her name is Leslie. Lesoletta. My grandma bought her when she was on holiday to Europe more than 50 years ago. When she was younger, Otoko used to examine brushing out her hair and unbuttoning, then rebuttoning her dangled little shoes. I played with her too, though not quite as delicately as my sister. I used to tip the poor doll upside down, intrigued to see what kind of she had on. It wasn't a particularly exciting sight. Visiting my grandparents was never exciting. This old house reminds me of my childhood, of long, seemingly endless summer days where I would lounge about in shade, trying to keep both the heat and my own boredom at bay. It never worked. Sometimes my parents and my grandparents and I would eat slices of watermelon sitting in the wooden. The watermelon was grown locally. It was firm green skin, firm green skin, concealing an inviting pale pink interior. We used to sprinkle salt on our slices of watermelon to draw out the flavor. It's a trick Dad taught me. That was kind of fun, I guess, but the warm summer air thronged with insects. They buzzed and bit and sucked my blood, leaving me with little red wheels all over my arms and legs. Fortunately, it's too cold for insects right now. My grandmother's home is the same as it was during those long, lazy summer days. The pictures on the walls, the opposite the boxy television set. A single syllable falls from my lips. I was wrong. There is something different about this room after all. A small shrine has been on a stand in the corner, a photograph of my grandfather. My grandfather died a little over a year ago. I haven't seen my grandmother since the funeral. I haven't been to her home since I've seen this shrine. I swallow. I never used to like my grandparents. I knew they were nice people. They were always spending money on my birthday and New Year's, but I was too young to appreciate their company. Then my grandfather died. I wasn't upset because I didn't know him, but that upset me more than his passing did. I didn't know him. How was that possible? I had plenty of opportunities to talk to him during my childhood, but I never took advantage of them. Instead, I spent my time at my grandparents' home, hunting around like a cat, reading or rereading volumes of boys' manga I brought with me to starve off the inevitable boredom. Maybe that's the reason why I decided to see my grandmother today. But this is something that I weighed on me for a while. Guilt. I don't want my grandmother to die like my grandfather. I want to get to know her a little better. She deserves it. She's always been so nice to me after all. Her and my grandfather. Grandmother enters the room. Here's your tea. Oh, thank you. Do you need help with that? Don't fuss with so much, dear. Like I said, you're my guest. My grandmother slides a cup of tea from the tray and places it on top of the katatsu. Thank you. I bow my head and my voice hushed. Is it good? I switched the tea from one side of my mouth to the other. I never liked green tea when I was little. Now I developed a tolerance for it. My grandmother's tea fortunately meets all those criteria. The tea has soft, slightly muted taste. The leaves have been steeped for the right amount of time. It's good. It's no worry, dear. Grandpa. Though it might be insensitive, I can't help but glance back at the shrine. My grandfather looks back at me from behind the smooth, glassy frame that entombs him. I think it's a nice picture. It'd be far too sad if his funeral photo bore a frown. Though now that I think about it, I can't remember ever seeing him frown. He was very cheerful. It's the cleanest air in Japan, was he always told me. It's been a while since his funeral, huh? That's right, it's been more than a year already, though it feels like it was only yesterday. I let my gaze drop to the tabletop. I wonder how old this katatsu is. Do you miss him? Of course I miss him. We live in a very quiet part of the world. My grandfather had a loud, booming voice, even when he was well in his 80s. I can still remember him calling out the sound, invading every single nook and cranny of this small wooden house. The watermelon's ready! I wonder how long ago that was. Maybe 5 years ago, maybe 10. When I went to sleep, I could always hear him snoring. Just drowned out everything now. My grandmother sighs. I can hear the cicadas in the summer, the wind in the winter, more clearly than ever. Didn't his snoring bother you? Not really. I got used to it. People can get used to anything. Have you gotten used to the wind? Not just yet. Maybe I should amend my previous statement. When they get older, we grow into our habits. I'm sorry. My grandfather smiles. Why are you apologizing, dear? You have nothing to feel sorry about. You know he loved you a lot. He did. Of course, you're our precious grandchild. I'm sure he still loves you. My grandmother laughs. I'm not sure whether I should be laughing or not. That's fine. I'm too old for New Year's money now. My grandfather looks me over, one hand beneath her chin. I suppose you are, yes. You are getting bigger and bigger by the second. I'm not that big. Not big, then tall. Yukinari was tall. Kaname, you must take after them. I don't think I'm very short. I've always been short for my age. Maybe I'm getting shorter. How long are you planning to stay here? A day or two? That's right. They're all in the snow now, isn't there? Has it been snowing a lot? Ever so much. The forecast said it meant to snow tonight too. I wonder if the trains will be running tomorrow. I've seen Christmas cakes on sale in the supermarket near my apartment in Tokyo. The Christmases? I don't think that's how you spell Christmases. In the countryside, however, are as far away from that idol as you imagine. The snow here can fall thick fast between the month of December and March. It even snow all the way into April if the weather is cold enough, and the weather seems to be getting colder and colder every passing year. Some of the very old houses around these parts, their wooden walls, rather worm-eaten and worn, actually collapse beneath the weight of the snowfall. It's all a little wonder that the legends of the fearsome snow woman who prowls the mountain at night looking for lost travelers originated from this area. You never find these snow women out in Tokyo. I guess ghosts seem laughable when you're surrounded by so many modern, high-rise buildings. It's much more isolated, quieter, lonelier. If I strain my eyes, I can hear the sound of the wind. I shiver beneath the katatsu. All of a sudden, I feel like a young kid. You can stay here as long as you want if the train aren't running, though I hope you don't get too bored. There isn't much to do out here. I came here to spend time with you anyway. How sweet. She prefers to be called Otome now. Oh yes, I forgot. When you get to my age, you start forgetting things. You seem pretty spry to me. In fact, I think you look even younger than before. Well, thank you. That's very kind. I'm lucky to have a caring grandchild like you. Oh no, it's nothing, really. I mean it. I had so many opportunities to reach out to my grandfather's parents in the past, but I never bothered. Then before I realized my grandfather was dead. He was dead and I never tried to get to know him. That was the wake-up call I needed. My grandparents, though they were born in a different generation of mine, are still human beings. They must be lonely too. I got lonely in Tokyo in my first few weeks of starting university, even though I was always surrounded with people. I can't imagine how lonely my grandmother must feel now that her husband of more than 50 years have passed. She's been with him for such a long time, devoted so much of her life to him. Vanished into thin air. My grandmother is still smiling. I glanced at grandfather's shrine once more. Unfortunately, a photograph can't bring back what has been lost. This is just a snapshot of frozen time. What's worth will photographs like these have 50 years from now? Who will remember my grandfather when the rest of his family has gone? Outside the wind. The weather forecast was right. Later that evening, it really did start to snow. The snow spirals through the air in delicate and twirl skirts. The snowfall is soft at first, almost tender, as though anxiously about whether it should land on the earth or not, but the flakes soon increase in size and volume. At around 9 in the evening, the whole ground had been steeped in white. I watched as the snow, as it falls outside the window and still sitting beneath the katatsu. It'll be a cold night tonight. I nod my head dumbly. The television is on the background, but I'm not watching it. Each snowflake that drifts past the windows stirs new memories in my heart. Doesn't snow like this in Tokyo. I never thought I'd miss the snow. Ah, well, surprises are supposed to be kept secret. You know, I don't want to spoil anybody's fun. That's why we love you, Aina. All women need to have one or two secrets, even those who spend their lives performing. The television buzzes dimly. Image flickers on the screen. A man in a gray suit sits on a couch. A group of girls clad in Graham facing. Spoken with a wink, they would make any man's heart flutter. If you've fallen for the charms of the adorable Anna and her group, Palette Princess, please consider supporting their newest release. Again, for any latecomer, what's your CD called? Dreaming in December. Do you know that group? I turn, tearing my eyes from the window, and looking over at the girls who are displayed on the screen. The image on the screen is shakingly, uncomfortably like it's been broadcast live from a boat in the middle of a storm. At least I can make the images, more or less. There are 5 girls wearing matching outfits in varied colors: green, blue, yellow, purple, and pink. I think the girl in pink sitting in the center is the leader. I think Otoko likes that group, but I'm not interested in idols. I don't listen to pop music either, but they look like nice girls. They have to be smiley. That's how they sell CDs. How cynical. Is that what living in the city does to people? Living in the city? And the internet, maybe? I wouldn't know much about that. I'd never gotten along with the so-called World Wide Web. My grandmother makes quotation marks with her fingers when she says it, though the internet is some kind of strange voodoo magic far beyond her understanding. The people who aren't familiar with the internet, it might as well be voodoo magic. I don't entirely understand how it works myself. It's a good thing I'm studying law and not computering. Oh my god. The writing in this is so bad. Okay. Well, I guess you don't need to worry about it. I try not to. I'm just a relic of the past. You're not a relic. A fossil? Well, you don't need to worry about hurting my feelings, I know where I stand. I'm not like those girls. What girls? The ones on the television. Those girls look so bright and cheerful, even though they are wearing such short skirts. I never would be allowed to dress like that when I was their age. My poor mother's heart would have stopped beating. Times are changing. That's right, I'm beginning to notice it more and more. I just can't keep up with you young people. Half of what Otoko says goes over my head, I'm afraid. All this talk about boy bands and fashions and TV shows, you shouldn't pay any attention. Her head as empty as a Halloween pumpkin. You're so cruel to your sister. Me bully her? I start my grandmother. She's not paying attention to the way Otoko treats me. Maybe she doesn't know because she doesn't visit her enough. I think it's the other way around. Maybe she doesn't think you deserve nice words there. Why not? You did lock her in our futon closet when you were younger. Oh yeah. I guess my grandmother's right. I did do that. It happened so long ago I totally forgot. I think Otoko was trapped in that cramped, musty closet for half an hour until my parents realized she was missing. You say you're getting on in years, but you have a better memory than I do. How could I forget? You caused such a commotion. Well, I used to be a brat when I was younger. As children behave badly, it's nothing to be ashamed about. But I don't know if you ever apologized to her. Did you apologize? No, but it was so long ago, it's not like it matters anymore. That's what you think, but these little things can stay with people. Women are incredibly good at holding grudges. Are you speaking from experience? I'm afraid that is a well-kept secret. My grandmother taps the side of her nose with one finger and I suppress the shredder. I hope no wayward woman tries to take my grandfather away from my grandmother when she was in the prime of her youth. If she was anything like that, Toko is now, I'm sure her vengeance would have been swift and painful. Still, my grandmother frowns. I know I'm past my prime now, just like the doll. The doll like her used to be exceedingly fashionable back in the day. French dolls used to be a status symbol for bored housewives. But now, they're outdated. Time marches on. It caught up with the poor. Her hair is starting to fall out. Her right thumb's hanging on with the power of hope. And blue tack. She looks straight at me. Just maybe she's nothing like she was in her glory days. Believe it or not, I used to be beautiful too. But all good things come to an end. Sometimes they come to an end much too quickly. I can hear the snow falling in the background above the low, lazy buzz of the TV. I wonder whether my grandmother's house will one day collapse beneath its old age, all the snow. What will last longer, my grandmother or her home? I don't know much about my grandmother's past, but I was born and raised in a tiny village. She never left. She never had any reasons to leave either, because her life was comfortable here. Life was simpler back then. Maybe that's because the internet had not yet been invented. It's hard for me to believe, but my grandmother grew up in an era without the World Wide Web. She calls it. Progress really is amazing, but people always get left behind. My grandparents' case, it happens quite literally. All the young people left, while their aged parents stayed on. In a few years, all those old people will be no more. A ghost village. The population of cities will continue to swell. The village is already unmistakably and beginning to die. You can see it in how dirty and depleted the train station is, how empty the streets, how ramshackle all the old and wooden homes. There are hardly anybody here anymore, just the wind. I still remember when I first met Yukari. My grandmother's voice is soft, her eyelashes downturned. I was only 16. I went to the local shrine on the New Year's Eve with my mother, meaning to ring the bell and offer my prayers to the gods. I was wearing a new kimono and a soft gazy shawl that was brand new. I looked very fine and I wouldn't stop preening. My mother told me I'd be struck with misfortune if I continued being so vain. She was right. My mother had tremendous foresight, but she didn't know that this would be the luckiest day of my life. She got my saw in a sudden breeze and it drifted away from me. I tried to get it back, but I wasn't fast enough. I couldn't reach it in time. I was sure my lovely new shawl was gone forever until he caught it for me. You mean grandfather? My grandmother nodded her head and a small smile on her face. That's right. That sounds very romantic. It was. I was quite taken with him. My grandmother smiles fondly, her fingertips tracing the rims of her teacups. I wish I could go back to the shrine. The canary might be gone now, but I feel closer to him. I still remember how my heart fluttered when he handed me my shawl, and our fingers brushed for the very first time. It was so long ago, but it feels as though it was only yesterday. Then, why don't you go back there? It'll be New Year's in a few days. You can relive your old memories. Oh no, I'm too old, and it's cold. There are so many stairs. I couldn't go there now. I could help you. You can lean on my shoulder. That's a sweet offer, dear, but in this weather, we both slip and break our necks. Well, maybe you have a point. I hope nobody's wandering in the mountains that surround this village lost and alone. I don't know if I would want to visit Yukinari like this anyway. What do you mean? My grandmother looks down at her beige sweater, her demurek skirt, and her weathered old hands lying upon her laps. I'm not the bright-eyed, eager young girl I used to be. I'm gotten older. The shrine has gotten older too. It's fallen into disrepair, just like me. I don't think I could stand to go back there seeing it crumbling all overrun with weeds. I would prefer to keep my memories inside here. My grandmother held one hand against her breast. Memories aren't like flowers. It's easier to nurture them in the dark. If I don't expect too much, I can't be disappointed. But that sounds so sad. Getting old is sad, dear. But it's something I've made peace with. It happens to the best of us, and the worst. Everybody in between. That concludes our interview with the lovely Palette Princess. Hope you enjoyed yourself, but don't switch over yet. We have another treat in store. That's right. It's the brand new upcoming idol group formed by Xanax, called, but never get to discover what Xanax's new idol group is called, because at that moment the screen flickered. It turns a series of particular colors are cycled through strawberry, lemon, blue Hawaii, where it cuts out entirely, eaten up by a full screen of static. There's snow inside the TV. The grandmother tuts and shakes her head. All the snow must have knocked down the TV aerial. It happens last year too. How long does it take to fix it? As long as it takes for a repair to come out here. Weeks? Well, that was the Ukinari phoned them a dozen times. He could be quite insistent when he wanted. Can imagine. I can still remember my grandfather's loud, booming voice as he called me to the kitchen to fetch my freshly cut slices of watermelon. If it took a man like my grandfather weeks to get results, I can imagine my grandmother will be more successful. I don't watch much TV anyways. Then how do you fill the time? I can't imagine there much to do around here now that Grandpa... I find ways. I like cooking. There's always housework to be done. But my back hasn't been up to it lately, I admit. When that loses its appeal, I can always read. Oh, I've always loved reading. There's so many books I wanted to get through when I was younger, and I never had the time. Now I have all the time in the world, but my eyesight's so bad I can't focus for more than 10 minutes at a time. It's always one thing or another. I echo one of my dad's commonly used phrases. That's what Yukinari always said. Dad says it too. It's true. It is always one thing or another. You just have to take the good with the bad. I've had a lot to be thankful in my life. Like me and Grandpa? Yes, that's another one of my favorite pastimes. With the shrine? When he caught it, my heart skipped a beat. I would have taken with Yukinari in any case because he was so tall and distinguished. But when he caught it seemed like destiny. It was as though the gods of the shrine had taken charge of the wind to ensure that we would meet that night. Oh my. It sounds so sentimental when I recount it like that. I think it sounds nice. I always thought that too. It could be a scenario from Uzum film. I bet Otoko would lap it up. It does sound like the kind of thing that she'd be interested in, doesn't it? Why not? There wouldn't be any flashy special effects. And it wouldn't star Takizawa Hideaki. Who's that? An actor. Otoko loves him. Well, girls be girls, won't they? My grandmother starts laughing, her face seizing up with the mirth. I can't help but join her. I can't remember the last time I bonded with my grandmother like this. I don't think I ever bonded with my grandmother like this. The smell of green tea. How many cups of green tea have my grandmother drunk? That's how movies always are. They're like reinventing things. They cast the most handsome actors and wiring every last drop of drama out of the event. Sometimes fantasies can be more comforting than reality. Is that really what you think? If there exists a fantasy where I could be a young girl again, I'd jump on it in an instant. If I could be a girl for only one more day. My grandmother shakes her head. Perhaps. She sits up a little straighter and points out into the window, almost knocking it over. Oh, what? Out the window. I turn my head obediently. The snow is still falling thick and fast and obscuring much of the inky night sky, but between the pure white flakes I can just see about it, the moon hanging. They're leaving a trail like a jet plane as it shrieks across the night. It's a star. A shooting star. I haven't seen any shooting stars in Tokyo. The buildings are so tall it's almost like they scared the stars away. The sky is murkier and more mysterious when you live in the big city. Out here in the middle of nowhere, my view of the night sky is by the outside distractions. Not even the snow can mask it. Quickly, you should make a wish. A wish? That's right, I'll make a wish too. My grandmother closes her eyes. Like gray with my grandmother's eyelashes had become too thin. They looked nothing like the plump band of eyelashes that framed the eyes of the Colette girls. But thinking about it, those girls' eyelashes can't be natural. They're fake. I guess most guys wouldn't care about that. Speaking of Otoko, maybe I should wish for that. Yeah, I can't think of anything else I'd rather ask for. If there are gods out there, mischievous beings light as air, who conspired to bring my grandparents together all those decades ago, I hope they can hear my humble wish. I only have one. I hope Otoko and I can get along better. I spent that night lying in a futon. Grandmother prepared for me in the guest room. Well, I call it a guest room, but it's more like a storage room. There's a bookcase pushed on one side of the room, filled from top to toe with paperbacks. When my grandmother said she was a reader, she wasn't lying. The whole house crammed with books, ranging from classics we students had to suffer through in high school. Some of the books are dog-eared and looked well-worn and well-loved, but most of them are brand new. The sight of these books, half hidden, lurching in darkness, touches at something inside my breast. I'm not sure what it is. Sympathy? There are so many books my grandmother wants to read, so many books she'll never get the time to read now. The icy wind, sharp as razors, slides through gaps in the wall, dances about the room. Stones that roam the mountains, and their faces white as milk. I wonder, what mysterious force of nature was it that parted my grandmother from her shawl all those years ago? Was it the sudden whisk of gusts, or was it something more to it? I'm not a superstitious person, unlike some of my fellow university students. I don't spend hours at night trawling on the internet, searching for urban legends and conspiracy theories to get riled up about. I prefer to believe that things simply happen, and not always for a reason, and that's just the way life is. That's my typical stance on the issue, but in this old house, I'm embedded with the scent of green tea served hundreds, no thousands of ghostly impressions and my grandparents' past. And I'm surrounded by old books that are well loved, new books that have never been chanced to be loved, and the snow is falling. I almost want myself to believe. Maybe it really was a spirit after all. It's easier to believe in magic and spirits and destiny when you're isolated in the countryside. I'm not sure why. Perhaps being alone beneath the starry sky naturally fills our imagination. It's hard to imagine when you're surrounded by too many people. Life swallows you up like a tidal wave. I turn over in my futon restlessly, rocked up in thin covers. There's only one pillow to rest my head on, and it's sad. I can't help but imagine as I try and fail to get comfortable. The snow outside really is relentless. The wind continues to moan. Because, winds, they moan. They're like, ah! that to me, Matt's Creek. All the while, as I slowly fall into the land of dreams. I swear I can hear the faint sounds of muffled laughter. December 30th, Saturday. Aw, and thus Robo stops. I'll see you guys December 30th, guys. Not in real life in game. Unless you're watching it on the 29th. Or you're watching it on the 30th. Then I'll see you guys December 30th.